This is A Smaller Life, a podcast about making more conscious and more ethical choices within our crafts. Hosted by me, Saskia de Feiter. I'm a small business owner who wants to grow by going smaller. Together with local makers, I make tools, yarns, and accessories for knitters that want to buy less, buy better, make more, and make it last, keeping away the overwhelm and all the ridiculousness of over-consuming within our crafts. In the podcast, I endeavor to answer the question we ask ourselves before we start a project. What do we buy? Where do we buy? Who do we buy from? Or don't we buy at all, but use what we already have? Because when you think about what you do, you take more time and end up with less of everything. As a result, you'll get a smaller life. In this episode, we'll welcome Anna Bauer to the podcast. Anna is a textile artist from Sweden, and she has such a fun and colorful way of looking at things and doing things. She started to become a little bit obsessed by Hönsestrikk, a kind of wave in knitting that was really popular in the 70s in Denmark. Anna focused on it and worked with it and designed patterns, and she's made multiple books with the theme, one of which is actually translated into English. Her books are so fun. They're inclusive in the models that she uses, the sizes that she uses. The idea of Hönsestrikk is basically all the elements of what I think the power of knitting is come together. It's political, it's green, it's conscious, it's fun. Please have a listen to this awesome interview.
Hello.
Hello. Har du vatten?
Ja, jag har vatten.
Yeah. Okay, I've practiced something. Let me see if I can say it. Hej Anna, tack så mycket för att du var på hoven. Is that right or is it wrong?
På hoven?
Yeah, the show. Or do you say differently for thank you so much for being on the show? What would you say?
Tack så mycket för att du är med på podden.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited and also always a little bit nervous. Are you nervous?
No, not really. Maybe a little bit.
Okay. So I was thinking, how did I didn't actually meet you. How did I see your things? It was probably Instagram. And I think I was following the hashtag colorwork, and then I saw a post and it was so colorful and so fun. I was hooked. I thought this is my thing. And then I looked into it, and there you were with your book. I think it was The Alternate Rebellion at that time, or maybe the Swedish version of Hönsestrikk Forever.
Yeah.
And then I thought, she does all the things that I love about knitting, and I need to meet this woman. But let's start at the beginning. You are a textile artist?
Yes.
And textile is your main material you work with. So you're an artist. And would you say textile artist, or is it broader than just, how would you describe your work?
I used to call me textile artist because I mostly work in textile, but it's not only knitting, it's like embroidery and costume for film and theater and some printing, stuff like that.
Yeah. So, and how did you become one? How does one become a textile artist?
I have always make my own clothes since I was a kid, and it was really, really ugly and badly done. So I decided I want to learn how to make proper patterns and sew. So I went to a school for that, and then I also took years education in theater costume and historical costumes. But in that time, I wanted to be like a fashion designer. So I went to a school in Denmark. But I realized soon that fashion is not for me. It's too fast and too cool and too So I went to a school in Gothenburg called HDK, and then I took an education in textile art.
Aha.
Yeah.
And that school in Gothenburg, was it focused on the art part of textiles and not the fashion kind?
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was more of a free art.
Yeah.
And then you focused on textile arts.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So tell me, what age were you when you did the education?
Around 25, I think. Yeah.
And so you've always been working in the textile arts. Can you give me some examples of things that you did when you first graduated and what kind of things you're doing now?
I had to have a proper job in a shop for some years, selling fabrics and curtains and, pillows and...
Still textiles.
Yeah, it was textiles mostly. And then I tried to have so much exhibitions I could get in different places and with different people. And then I get my studio at an area in Gothenburg called Konstepidemin. It's an old epidemic hospital with like 130 artists in different materials and so on. And at that time I started in a group we do a creative workshop with kids in art. So that became an extra thing for me. And
extra line of income.
Yeah, and I learned so much because this group has been doing that for 30 years, and some of the members, they have so much experience, and it was really good to learn how to set up things and how to meet kids in a good way, and yeah.
It sounds so fun to be in such a creative environment with so many artists. Did you have any good parties?
Sometimes. Yeah.
It sounds like it would be a party crowd.
Yeah.
But not while you were working with kids, obviously.
No.
No. Were you like a party type of student?
Yeah.
Or are you yeah.
I was.
So was it always like your calling, and does it still feel like this is you are just almost sewn into the fabric, or do you sometimes think, no, I want to try something else?
Sometimes I feel like I should change material and try wood or painting or something, but
textile is very versatile though.
So you have always more things to learn and more things to discover. So
Yes, and so I found you on Instagram, and the thing I saw from you, and the thing that I think, at least in the knitting community, that you are known for right now is the let me see if I can pronounce it right, the Hönsestrikk. Yeah. And I am dying to know more about it. Let me try to describe it from my point of view, and then I would love to hear how you got into it and a little bit more about the history. So when you see a piece that's knitted in this particular, it's not a technique. The technique is color work, but it's very bright colors. Symbols are used, images of everything. I've seen phallus symbols, I've seen peace signs, I've seen cherries. It's so colorful, it's so fun. And please tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah, it is a knitting style from Denmark, and the person who invented it was Kirsten Hofstetter, a lady who was very into politics and women's
feminism.
Yeah, at that time in the early 70s. But she was on a vacation in Czechoslovakia, and then she started knitting to her son, and she formed a manifesto about knitting, because in that time you had to buy the same yarn and the pattern from the same producer, and she also wanted to get politics into the knitting. So she went to a publishing company called the Red Rooster, and they only published political books though, but they didn't want to publish her book about knitting, so she...
Yeah, I could kind of imagine. Can I publish a book about knitting?
Yeah. So she decided to set up her own publishing company called Hönsestrikk, like hen, rooster, hen.
Oh, yeah.
And therefore the knitting style was called Hönsestrikk.
Yeah, so the hen, like the chicken, is referring to like a woman.
Yeah, that's my interpretation of it. Yeah. And she printed the first book in 1973, and it was a huge success in Denmark, and it was translated into many other languages. Then she did like number 2 and 3 and some other books, and her publishing company did as well publish many books, like 70 different books about women and politics and art and stuff.
Oh, cool. So it wasn't all knitting. It was very much focused
Politics.
on the women in politics.
But the knitting books was the greatest success, so they like covered the other books financially, you could say. Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you say is particularly political about this style of knitting?
It's in different ways. The most obvious is that you knit political symbols like the peace sign and feminist signs, stuff like that, and also texts with political messages into your garment. But also this green wave, do you say that in English? When you...
Yeah, ecological, like conscious.
You make to make your own clothes and your own food, so you don't have to be a part of the, what do you call it, consuming...
Consumer, maatschappij. I don't know the word either. Consumerism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And also she had a vision that if you believe in your own creativity and what you do with your hands, you can like take that power and do many other things in different ways in your life. I love that thought.
Yeah, and I think at that time, knitting was not considered a feminist act. I mean, I think quite the opposite. Like women were moving away from textile chores around the house and stuff. So that must have been a really fresh look on things.
It was a bit controversial in the feminist area, actually.
Yeah, it's also very cost effective. It's good for the environment because you can use your scraps. You don't have to buy new yarns as well. And you don't have to buy like a kit from a brand. You can just use what you have in the same thickness.
Yes.
And the fun thing about this is the early 70s, but all these aspects are so current in this time. A lot of people are mixing like politics with knitting. They are looking at the conscious aspects, the choices you make within your knitting. That's actually what I'm doing. And that's why it's so perfect that you're on the show now. All these elements of this Hönsestrikk, they come together in what I believe is the power of knitting. And it's awesome. So how did you pull that to this day and age? What did you do to make it current?
Well, I borrowed this book from the 70s from my friend and I started knitting a lot. I was like obsessed with knitting Hönsestrikk for several years. So I posted it on Instagram and shared it and
people reacted to it.
Yeah. And for me, the most important thing is to believe in your creativity and use your hands. And I think that's the social part around knitting is important to me.
Yeah. And so you knit a lot for yourself, maybe your friends and family. At what point did you think this should be a book?
When this publishing company called me and asked if I wanted to make a book.
Wow, that's the dream.
Yeah.
You were discovered.
Yeah.
And you said?
Yes, I want.
Yes. Was it hard? Was it the first book you made?
Yeah. This Hönsestrikk, A Love Story or Ultimate Rebellions, it was translated in English. Yes, it was my first one and it was a lot of work, but it was really fun all the time actually. Yeah.
And what kind of patterns did you make for the book?
Cardigans and like hot pants.
I love the hot pants.
And some mittens and like a cowl.
Yeah.
This piece we call fuskolle in Sweden. It's like a collar you put inside your jacket and you see the turtleneck.
Yeah, I think Stephen West calls it a dickie. So it's a cowl and you have like a piece of fabric on your chest and on your back. Yeah, that's very good for your warmth. It's very practical. It's a funny looking thing, but it's very, very practical. And it would be even more fun if there's a political message on your dickie.
Yeah.
I'm getting ideas already.
Yeah, good.
And so there's multiple types of patterns in the book. So would
Yeah.
you say this is a technique that you have to be very good at knitting, or are there also patterns that are a little bit easy for beginners?
It's the patterns is like frames, and then in the last part of the book is like a library with different borders and motifs and stuff. So you can pick your own stuff.
That makes it even better. So it's more of a recipe where you have a basic pattern for like a mitten, and then you go to the back of the book and then you choose the symbols that you want to use and the colors.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One of the showstoppers in the book is a cardigan that has a text on the back. I will paste a picture in the show notes. Can you explain what the text says? Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think so. It says, "Det är inte mig det är fel på. It's not me that is wrong."
Ha! I love that. I love that. I would be tempted to knit it in Swedish as well, but I don't think it would be very effective here. But it just looks really pretty. So there's two books. There's Alternate Rebellion. That's translated in English.
Yeah.
Yes, so people will be able to get it. I'll put the link in the show notes. And then there's Hönsestrikk Forever. That's the second one.
Yeah, and it came for about a month ago. But I know that it's going to be translated in German.
Okay, that's great.
I don't know about English yet, but I hope so.
Yeah, let's all send messages to the publisher and ask for it. And you said you are not sick of it yet. Do you knit new things every time? Do you knit for other people? What does your personal knitting look like?
I knit for myself and my kids, and then I try to make new patterns all the time. So it's mostly new patterns I try to make. And
yeah. It's always like taking something that you can use, but you can also use for a new book or a new design, or so it has multiple functions. You kind of have to think that way with knitting, right? Because it takes so much time.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was also wondering, you have a very wide range of models in the book, which is great. It's very inclusive. You can totally see yourself in one of those patterns. Does it also have different sizes?
Yeah, I try to make a lot of sizes. So the most of the patterns, like the cardigans, is from extra small to 4XL.
Yeah, that's a great range.
Not so much in the mittens. In the mittens, there is maybe 2 sizes.
Yes, that's really great. And then you didn't sit still. So right after the second book, you are now working on something that I have in front of me. It's really, really fun. It's a knitting zine called Smørhønen.
Yeah.
Butter rooster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I need to know more.
Or butter chicken, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, butter chicken.
Yeah. No, I had this idea for a while to make something fast and fun, and like, the women and politics idea is very nerdy about one specific thing. And then I got project, what is it called? I got some money to do the fanzine.
Yeah, subsidy.
Yeah, and it had to do with Corona and stuff. So I got the printing covered and I made it. It was really fun. And I asked people to send in some texts about, the first number has the theme Start Me Up, about how to start with knitting. And the idea was to focus on the process in knitting. It sounds really boring, but
it doesn't look boring. It looks really fun and colorful and crazy, and it looks amazing.
Thanks. And you can knit your own Corona sweater. I made a pattern for that.
Yeah, that's really fun. It looks like you're the actual virus with poops and bubbles all over your body. It's really fun. Mm-hmm. And so the idea of a zine is that your community brings something together and then you bring it out. Is that the idea? Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like a non-profit magazine
for us, by us, something.
Yes.
There's also a little bit of knitting that says, I can translate. It says, "Dear alien, I hope you," and then I don't know, "Sjå trivas här."
I hope you will enjoy it here.
It's really fun. And the cool thing is Anna gave us an extra one. So I get to keep one and I get to give one away. So I'll leave the information on how to get it in the show notes. It's really fun. So what would your political message be? Are you the person that is helping other people spread messages, or do you have a particular message yourself?
That's a tricky one. I think my thing is to inspire, I hope, to have the courage, like trust their creativity and feel comfortable with own choices and decisions in the process. Because I think many people are like anxious. They don't really feel that their own decisions and choices are good enough.
Yeah, I've seen that too. In owning a knit shop, I've seen a lot of people be insecure about themselves and their skills and the way they look. And it's actually heartbreaking to see how many women struggle with their vision of themselves. I think it's really good for those of us that don't have it as much to support others and cheer them on, because it doesn't have to be perfect. We live in a world that is focused on perfectionism, but perfectionism is not bringing us anything. I think the fun is in the process. It's in the learning and in the community, learning from each other. And that is, I think, very important to stay connected with other people so that you don't sit in your bubble expecting like way too much of yourself. You need people around you that bring you to that level that is more realistic and less overwhelming. We have to be so much and do so much. Why can it not be just fun? So yeah, I totally agree with you. I think we have a lot in common in our history. I also wanted to be fashion designer and decided to go another way. And yeah, you kind of want to, doing good in the world doesn't have to be really complicated, right? You can help people find what they love. If people find something that really connects with them, then that's the biggest gift. Especially with a zine, it's like extra showing. It doesn't have to be perfect to be fun. Just go for it. There's multiple ways that you can learn a new technique, because obviously it's not completely for beginners, but there's no reason why you should not try it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
We were talking about you coming here to teach. Actually, this September, you were going to come here and talk about the technique. And luckily, I now have a podcast and we can still talk about it.
Yeah.
But do you teach in Sweden, or is it mainly focused on telling people about this Hönsestrikk? Hello, friends. I just want to say something to you quickly. So if you're liking the podcast, if you're liking what I'm talking about, consider joining the mailing list. I have bi-weekly updates on the podcast and or business insights and tips. The occasional exercise to get you ahead. If you want to actually talk to other business owners about the things that I talk about here on the podcast, why not become a Javel community member for as little as €8.50 a month? That's like buying me coffee and a croissant. But don't do it for me though. Do it for yourself, because I promise that you will get something out of it, either the emails and or the community. So you can either go to the show notes or sign up through javel.myflowdesk.com/pattern-shift. I hope you'll join us.
Have workshops in Hönsestrikk in Sweden, yes. And then I both tell them a story about the start, and then we knit, and I try to learn what
do people send you pictures of their Hönsestrikk bedspreads?
Yeah, sometimes people send me pictures of things they made, yeah.
And what is the biggest kick for you in your work?
To see what people make. And I can see they have knitted some garment from my book in different colors, and I can recognize some patterns from it, and in a way I never had come up to myself. So it's really fun.
Yeah, you just provide the butter and the flour and they make cakes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's so funny because I know people that are a little bit starstruck by designers and people that make knitting books, and they keep everything they make to themselves. And they're like, no, I'm not going to show, I'm shy. It's exactly what all designers and teachers want, is to see what their students and fans make. It's very important to know that communicating about these things is like giving a tip in a restaurant. Sometimes people keep quiet about what they're doing, about what they enjoy. And oh, there's the bike messenger. He's coming to pick up the packages. Hallo. Ze staan hier allemaal op tafel. Het is altijd lekker licht, hè, wol? Ja. Just told him it's very light. It's wool. There he goes. All right. So where were we? We were talking about the zine, and there's already a second one ready to go out. Is it going to be a series? Are there going to be more than 2?
Yeah, I'm planning number 3, and that has focused on the social parts in knitting, like get together and do's and don't, the silent rules in knitting, So,
I want to know more about those silent rules. Can you give me an example?
when is it not okay to knit? For example, like
Funeral?
Yeah, that's true. But it's yeah, funeral or some parties when you are sitting at the dinner table, it's not okay. But and for some knitters, the acrylic yarn is a big no-no.
Mm-hmm.
But for some, it's like. But I want to know your point of view in this.
Oh, so people can send in their ideas about the silent rules of knitting and social knitting.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. We'll leave them the information and where they can send it. Can it be in English? Does it have to be in Swedish?
English is fine.
Oh, cool. Cool. So what is the Swedish community knitting like when there is no corona? And do you have knitting cafes, stitch and bitches? Do you have word for that?
Sometimes when you get to the pub and knit, it's stick och drick.
Oh yeah, knitting and drinking.
Yeah, and yeah, it's knitting cafes, and yeah, I think also that people have their own informal groups who meets. That's common, I think.
Yeah, and would you say people come together in like libraries, or is it more cafes or even shops?
Not so much shops, I think, but cafes and restaurants and home.
What do people do now to stay in touch in the knitting community?
It has been some knitting salons at Zoom, actually. So
Really?
yeah, and often at Tema we talk about some topic like eco dyeing or a specific kind of knitting or so. So
That sounds really cool. And who hosts these things?
The one I used to go for is craft. I don't know what it's called in English. Craft.
Council, maybe?
Yeah, it's like hemslöjd people who.
Yeah. Yeah, that I think in Holland we have the Craft Council, but they're not so active in these kinds of things, but they do host online courses and stuff. Yeah.
But we haven't got that lockdown in Sweden in the same way as other countries. So
That's true.
We have been able to meet in small groups. Yeah.
Yeah. Have you traveled to other countries where people knit, for instance, festivals or anything?
I've been to Denmark at knitting festival. Yeah.
I think the Scandinavian knitting is a little bit different in a way that in Holland we don't have as much of a history. We kind of have a little bit of history in the sweaters for fishermen's ganzies, but that is essentially an English tradition that blew over to the Netherlands. So we have some small things, but it's not really like Bohus knitting, and we don't really have that deep connection to it. And when I was in Oslo, it struck me that there's so many modern designers in the whole of Scandinavia, Denmark a lot, and then Norway, Sweden. So people do the revelry and they use international patterns, but they're also very fond of their native designers because there's a lot to choose from. And you can go either traditional or more modern. And in Holland, we always have to look over our borders to something else. And I thought it was very interesting to see that. Do you have any favorite other designers from your country?
Yeah, I have. Let me see. I like Maja Karlsson. She's a designer and a knitting book author. And I also like the Weststrand sisters. Do you know about them?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're cool. Yeah.
But I also like the Bohs knitting you mentioned, and the southern Sweden is called Binge. It's more traditional style, not specific designer, but it's a style.
And it kind of never goes out of style, the tradition.
Exactly.
I love that. You can wear something that is in the family for generations. If you know how to take care of your knitwear, then it can be with you for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I miss Sweden so much.
You have to come when the corona is over.
Yes, I definitely will. I definitely will. So every time I have questions that come back into the podcast, so I have a question. What would you do if you had to choose? Would you make all your clothes or buy everything secondhand?
Make my own clothes. Yeah.
Yes. Even bras? Or just stop wearing bras?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm with you.
Shoes had been the hardest, I think. To make your own shoes is tricky.
Shoes,
Yeah.
yes. Luckily, I have a friend that's a shoemaker,
Oh.
and I'm going to invite her to the podcast as well. She's in America, but I'm sure she'd be able to teach me something, and I could make like basic slippers
Yeah. Exactly.
and then knit really thick socks.
Or clogs.
Clogs, yes. Yeah, you can make almost anything, and wool is so great. If you knit it really tightly, you can stay dry from the rain. There's no bad weather, there's just bad clothing, right? So if you had to choose, would you choose Netflix for free for life or free weekly fruit baskets for life?
Food or fruit?
Fruit.
Netflix, I think. Not so much fruit.
I thought of these questions because I wouldn't know how to choose. But you're Netflix, bye. Enjoy your fruits. And then the last one is lots of holidays close to home or a faraway trip once in a few years.
A lot of holidays close to home, I think. Yeah.
Do you travel? Did you travel a lot?
No, not really. Mostly in work, when I work somewhere. I have 3 kids, and it's like expensive to travel far away with kids. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So do you kids want to wear your knitting?
Yeah, they like hats and mittens and socks, but not the sweaters so much anymore.
Yeah. What age are they, if I may ask?
They are 9, 11, and 12.
It's almost same as my kids. Yeah, there's this age where they back away from the knitted sweater, back away from mommy. She's starting a knitted sweater. My son is actually pretty good about it, but he's in high school now. So I don't really want to start because he's getting so big and tall,
Yeah.
especially tall, that it's a lot of work if he doesn't wear it. But I'm sure if
Yeah.
I make him a Hönsestrikk sweater that says, I'm a gamer for life, then he would probably like it.
Or this kind of 70s vest with no arms. I think that they're going to be back in fashion.
You think so? Oh, I'm going to hold you to that one. I'm going to say Anna said that it was going to go back into fashion. And what is that? Minecraft. I'm sure we can knit all the Minecraft things because they're all square.
Yeah.
They have Minecraft alpacas. I'm really into it. His birthday was a while ago and his friends were there and I replied to something they were talking about Pokemon or something. And he said to his friends, yeah, my mother knows a lot about these things. And I was so proud.
That's good.
Yeah, but I think I'm knitting him a Minecraft vest. I'm not sure. I think it might be a bridge too far. I'll ask him first.
A pair of mittens, maybe.
A pair of mittens. That's a good one. Yes. What do you not want to give up that really doesn't fit in a conscious lifestyle? So something that you know you should be better at, but you really don't want to give up.
A bit embarrassing to say, but meat, actually.
Is that embarrassing? Nah.
A little bit. But I do like eat meat.
I gave it up a couple of years ago, and I have to say it's really easy except for the bacon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do really miss bacon. So I totally understand. Like in our family, the boys eat meat, the girls don't. And we mix and match the whole thing. So no, not embarrassing at all. Thank you so much for your time and your stories. And I'm sure we could talk for another half hour about all these things, because this Hönsestrikk is something that is totally me. And I have to be honest, I haven't started a project yet.
Oh, you have to do that.
I know. And I will now, especially because you talked about the whole don't be scared. I'm not scared about it. I just haven't started. But I do have that little bit of thing in me that wants to make the sweater with the whole text. I want to make it big, right? So maybe I just start with a pair of mittens first, and I'll have to think about what it says. Like, buy less, buy better.
Yeah.
On my left hand, buy less. On my right, buy better. I'll think about it. Oh, I forgot one question. Never mind. Never mind. That's actually what the question was. It says, never mind Alice Starmore. Here's Smårhönan.
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
You know, that's from the punk album with Sex Pistols. They said, never mind the bollocks, here's the Sex Pistols. So
that's kind of naughty. It's almost like a sort of a fuck you, right?
Yeah.
But not really. And I like this about the whole thing, that it is really colorful at first sight, but then there's another layer to it. It's a really current theme. I'm sure a lot of people that hear about this are going to be very excited to start this, and I'll provide them with all the information they need. Thank you so much, Anna.
Thank you for having me.
I hope you loved the interview with Anna. I'm very, very inspired to start my project. I'm kind of like stuck in, I want it to be really cool. And I'm just so, I don't know what colors. It's going to be this whole project. And I'm just postponing the joy, I think. Like, you have a really nice piece of chocolate and you just want to save it for the best moment. This is what I feel like when it comes to my first Hönsestrikk project. We were going to have Anna teach at Jawohl, and obviously that didn't happen, but I'm so happy she was my guest here on the podcast. She's been really nice, and she sent me one of the Smårhönan fanzines to give to you people. So you can leave a voice message on the podcast website and let me know what kind of Hönsestrikk message would you knit into your projects. Let me know your messages and I will send one of you the Smårhönan fanzine. I just love Swedish. Swedish is the best language in the world. You can find Anna on annabauer.se. She's also on Instagram, Anna Bauer GBG. So find her, find me, and enjoy this fun and colorful way to knit.